Hey everyone, Live Lock here, and it's been a while, but that's what happens when no content is put out in the game that you play for years, it seems. I thought I'd give this time to do a little channel update type video. Most people know me as doing DK videos, even though I originally started as doing monk and warrior videos. I had changed my main over. So for this video, I kind of want to go over like what my plans are for the different characters that I play, what kind of content I'm going to be playing, like my thoughts on the tier sets and everything. Starting with what could be good or bad news depending on how you feel. So for next patch, the the current plan is that I'll be running keys still, Mythic Plus keys. I won't be really raiding like whatsoever. I'm not really into raiding at all. I can't commit to the time schedule, but I'll be grouping with the same two people that I grouped with in the last season. We'll be kind of restarting and just going to get from wherever we start off. I guess like we'll be doing like 13 keys for a week, going back up to the normal stuff, and going up to like at least 21. That's like what I've been doing this season, so we'll make that the minimum bar for next season. Um, the three of us originally were playing Blood DK. That was me, Blood DK, Druid, Healer, and Warlock. And for next patch, we have a couple of thoughts. The big thing that we noticed from this current patch is that getting good DPS players is really, really hard. And often it's the case that when you pug, you don't get into Discord, so you don't coordinate your DPS cooldowns. So we'd often run into cases where, we'd have like everyone blow their cooldowns, delete a pack, the next pack comes along, we have like no cooldowns at all for anything, and this pack takes forever, and something goes wrong with a kick, and all of the stuff like it routinely went wrong. We'd get lucky sometimes, we'd get good DPS players, but our thinking for next patch is that we're probably all going to at least intend to main DPS characters. So what does that mean? That means for me, I will probably be focusing primarily on Shadow Priest, and the healer, who was a druid, will probably be focusing at least 50% of his time on Frost Mage. So that's going to be a very different experience, obviously, from last season, and we've done some tests to see how it goes, and we're at the point where we can do like 21s on these alt characters, and it feels really good. It feels like when everyone, so I mean there's three of us, so we control the damage profile for the entire group. So we're in comms constantly, and we can always coordinate with each other and say like, who's going to blow cooldowns on whatever this pack is, or if the tank out of nowhere, pulls huge, like, we know we're all going to blow cooldowns to make sure it works out. That's something that we couldn't do before. Now, there are other problems with this, obviously, like finding good tanks is obviously not a trivial task, but, part of how I ended up feeling about last season was I really enjoy the tanking role. I really like the control it gives me, but it feels to me that the skill ceiling on tank is a lot lower than it is on like a DPS player. Like already in what is it, like the current like the 2 months or so that I've been dabbling with Shadow Priest, like I've had to do way more work and planning and simming than I ever had to do on my tank. Because really, what do you need from a tank at the end of the day? Like, you need to know your stuff, and you need to not die, and you need to pull in such a way that the people in your group can actually do damage. And that last part has been by far the hardest part with finding a good tank. They'll just like arbitrarily stop moving, like they just like don't pull. Now that we have a Frost Mage in the group, we all understand how hard it is to actually find a good tank that pulls correctly, because the Frost Mage will just bitch like constantly 24/7 because his Icy Veins uptime is like now in the pooper. So with all of us knowing, like, we have experience in every single role, like we know what to do as damage players, we have to just like find a couple of good tanks, just enough so that we can just have someone to not do stupid stuff and live, and we think that's going to be a lot easier for us to get higher keys. We've had so many keys where we die at the last second because like two of the DPS get hit by statues in halls, right? You know, like we don't have any worries about ourselves getting hit by statues, but you never know with the bug. Like sometimes that's just the case. Like for the longest time, we couldn't even time a 20 HOA because people just died as statues on the last boss. So the current thinking is we're going to be DPS players. That doesn't mean that we're not going to do the things that we did before. So for me, that means like keeping my blood DK geared up and still doing some blood DK content, of course. Like I still really like it, you know. I just need to make sure that he's in a position so that he can be like tagged back in if this whole DPS experiment isn't working out. Because I mean, honestly, I've never been a DPS player, so this is the first time that I'll ever be focusing on damage, and I am aware about all the terrible news about Shadow Priests. I know about the nerfs, and honestly, that I like that. Like the reason that I picked Shadow Priest in the first place was because I thought it was like a not meta thing. Like I never saw Shadow Priest like in Mythic Plus, right? Like whenever I was making groups as a tank, they wouldn't apply. They just don't exist. So I love playing classes that no one likes, which is also why I play Blood DK, right? Because I never saw any Blood DKs when I was playing my healer, for example. So I'm not worried about the Shadow Priest not being meta. Obviously, there's some level of badness that Shadow Priest can be where I won't want to play it, but it's actually a pretty high bar for me. Like in general, if it's like a bad class, bad meta type thing, then I'm kind of into it. So as far as Blood DK goes, I'm just gonna do I'll make sure that I can get the tier set on my Blood DK the same week I can get my tier set on Shadow Priest. But I'll probably just do like a couple of like one to 4 keys, never more than 4 keys in the beginning at least, on Blood DK. And I still do some stuff on my monk, my brewmaster, but for him, I think I'm not really gonna worry too much at all. Like I'll probably get like my tier set on the monk weeks into the patch, like weeks after my other 2 characters get their tier set, and that's totally fine. I like monk a lot, but I've been not into it because I've mained it for like a couple of expansions, so I'm okay with not doing it too much this time. And I'm pretty into Blood DK and Shadow Priest especially. So what does that mean for the channel? I think that means that there will also be Shadow Priest content. Whether or not people want to see that, I guess we'll end up finding out. I'm not sure yet, but I'll try to do it in an interesting way. I'll try to, one thing I like to do is just like make these comparison videos, and I think it's pretty interesting to think about, damage from a tank player's perspective or vice versa, like pulling from a DPS player's perspective. Like there's just so much things that people can learn from playing 2 different roles, if not 3 different roles. So that's the sort of thing I'm thinking. I'm not exactly sure yet. We'll kind of just see how it goes. But I do want to just kind of think out loud about why I like Shadow Priest so much. And we can use as an example this 21 Plaguefall key that we have here. So, I mean, it's true, like I said, that I've never played damage. So that's pretty exciting in the first place. Like just doing any damage whatsoever is pretty cool. Because, I don't know, I've never been like... Basically, I've never competed in this game, right? Because if you're always the tank, you're always alone in the group. As if you're doing like dungeon content, like you're never actually doing anything that's like truly competitive. There's like other groups out there, but it's a very different feeling. So, Shadow Priest, I picked it first because it's not meta. I never saw them, like I said. They have some interesting utility. So like anything that's weird to me, I kind of like. I think so. This first pull over here is just the slime pull, but it seems like Shadow Priest really has, like things it can do for every damage requirement, every damage profile. Like in this case, like, at this mob count, like we just spam Stirring Nightmare, but it works really well, right? Like you can see like on the damage meter, like you're spiking up to like, 100,000 on this kind of a pull. And like, okay, that's great. But if I can do that on my Windwalker monk probably, but then you're just shoehorned into being just that, when you're a monk. So anything with like unique or flexible damage profiles, I just like really, really like for some reason. So like we just did that pull, with the giant slimes, and then we turn around and we do this mini boss, and I'm Necrolord like every other Shadow Priest in the universe. So we also have answers, for a single target. And I think if we skip ahead a little bit, I'll try to find the spot where we fight the boss. Here we just yoink this red slime up to do the first boss, which is like this first boss is like the most fun boss like in the entirety of the game right now, especially for a spec that can actually do single target damage like a Shadow Priest. So like we kill this thing. I think I don't have my ruby bound in isolation, so I had to open up my character menu to get the ruby value out of that. Spiteful, but yeah, then we just like I don't know. I think Void Form is just like really fun. Like everything is so fast paced and like everything is going off, and you're just trying to keep up with like the insanity that you're generating, and like you're probably bound to cap it in most times, but like I mean in this case I'm at like 25k, and I'm still like a pretty bad Shadow Priest, right? So just kind of keep that in mind. Like there's a lot of room to grow here, but yeah, like this kind of fight is like really fun. I don't know, like as long as like everything is like working smoothly in the group, being a damage dealer that can actually do damage is like it's a really it's a good time. So yeah, being able to do like big AOE, big single target, like I'm really not sure what to think about like next patches like damage profiles just yet. Like I know that we got the nerfs, and I know people expect it to be very bad, but things change. There's nerfs and buffs after the first week of progression. It's not uncommon for that to happen. Things can happen where people don't expect them to happen, so I'm not really worried too much about that. I'm not super crazy about using Shadowflame Prism. Like I don't really like that legendary, and I do like using Void Torrent a lot, so that's not very exciting. But otherwise, I like the class a lot. I love being able to mass dispel. Like that's a weird thing that like only they can do. I like being Necro. I like not having to play Kyrian and Night Fae like I do in all my other characters. So that's another benefit to it. And I just like having the control. It's like it's a pretty simple spec. I mean, there's like a lot of like craziness that happens, but at its core, you have a 1 minute cooldown and you have a 2 minute cooldown. And my Demonology Warlock friend here works the same way actually as Shadow Priests do. So yeah, we kind of like we sync up basically. I'm getting my PI legendary ready just for some experiments. Like it could be fun to we both wear 2 minute classes. Maybe that'll be like an overall gain. It'll at least be fun for him. Maybe not for me, but it'd be nice to try at least. I have disease dispels. I have pretty decent off healing as well. Like Shadow Mend alone actually is a pretty decent off heal. I'm used to having my monk off heal, which is like awful. But yeah, I mean they're kind of there's my high level thinking. Like I like the damage profiles. I mean, what's the downside? The downside is I can't be a tank, right? So here we have a pull where I do something that I didn't know was that difficult, which was like standing still, right? Like I've got a frost mage in the group here, and he can throw down a blizzard and a frozen orb and get 100% value out of those two things. Now, after playing with my healer, who's become a frost mage, I can appreciate that it's really hard to find a tank that does that, because he's constantly bitching in Discord about like tanks moving people out of their orbs, like their icy veins, like everything's a problem with them, like it's terrible. But being able to do this, like I am a DPS cooldown as a Blood Death Knight. Like Gorfine's Grasp is like probably one of the best DPS cooldowns in the game, like especially when you're with like a positional requirement classes like Elemental Shaman, Frost Mage. The Implosion from a Demonology Warlock has a pretty tight range of effect, so having them stacked up with the Gorfine's Grasp is like massive value. So I can't do this like all the time. Obviously, I won't be in control of this part of the group, but I think overall, oh yeah, I don't know what happened here. Like this is a complete mystery to me. I have no idea how that pack built, but whatever it pulled, then we died here. Actually, this key fails because we can't kill the first boss. This is a tyrannical week, so we die on the first boss because we can't kill it. We don't have the damage. And then I was like, okay, you know what? Like, if I was my Shadow Priest, this would have been just fine, and like any tank would have been good enough at this point. So, that kind of just like solidified it in my mind. So those are my current thoughts, my current plan for next patch. Let me know if you're upset that I'm not going to be a Blood DK full time anymore, but I will definitely still try to put out a good amount of Blood DK content. I mean, there's going to be plenty to talk about with like tier sets and everything, and I haven't done any PTR, so I haven't ruined the patch for me like experience wise in any way. It'll be totally fresh, but I do want to focus a bit on Shadow Priest. So There aren't that many Shadow Priest YouTubers out there, so I'm thinking, we might find some people that are kind of that want content basically. We'll see how that goes, but yeah, that's the idea. Let me know what you feel. Good luck. See ya.